Good evening. How are you tonight? Are you ready for a story? Let's see what Pegasus has for us tonight. So, the children, just the three little ones, were in bed. They were all snuggled in. And Desmond kept saying to Tia, "Hey, Tia, do you think that we're going to see Pegasus tonight?" And she said, "I don't know. We've seen him the last couple nights. I don't know if we'll get to or not." So anyways, they're sitting there, and Desmond gets up off his top bunk, pokes his head out the window and looks. Nothing. And then in the distance, he sees a light, and he goes, Tia, he's coming. And just like that, he teased him. Instead of swooping over the house, he made a circle around, and the kids were just giggling and all excited because they knew he'd eventually just swoop down over the house. And in fact, he did. Swoop he did. Right down over the top, and the three children were on his back. And he said, "How was your day?" And they said, "Oh, we had so much fun. We had homeschool today." So that was interesting. This coronavirus 19 is... we don't have schools. We have to do it at home. So that was fun. But we got to play outside. It was windy and a little bit cold, but we had a great time. And so they chatted away, and he said, "Well, tonight we're going to go someplace I promised you we'd go. We're going to go back in time." Oh, they were so excited because they knew they'd get to see Grandma Debi when she was 9 years old. So anyways, he went straight up in the air as fast as he could go, and the children are squealing with delight because they got to hang on like crazy so they don't fall off. Of course, they're safe, but it just feels like they're going to fall off. And then when he gets as high as they think he can go, he turns east, and just like he's been shot out of a bow, there he goes. His nose is stretched out, his tail is behind him, his mane is flying back, and he's just straight as an arrow, just going as fast as he can. His wings are beating and his legs are galloping as fast as he can, and he goes so fast, and he goes back 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and more. And then they see the road, the Indiana-Ohio State Line Road. There it is. 1 mile blacktop, 1 mile stone, 1 mile blacktop, 1 mile stone, because Indiana did theirs in stone and Ohio did theirs in black and white. And he, just like an airplane coming in on a runway, and he lands right in front of the farm, which is stone, by the way. And the children, oh, they're all excited. So he finishes, and then he goes into the barnyard and tips his wing down. And the other children, there's 5 of them. There's Sharon and Grandma Debi, who's 9, and the twins and little Roger. And Roger is like 5, and 4, 5, and Tia is just 2. So those two were kind of hanging out. So they got to playing a game of tag right away. And Pegasus just took off and left because the children just started playing with Grandma Debi and her siblings because they were excited to see each other. And there were chickens in the yard. Like I told you, he had lots of different chickens, brown ones and black and white ones and white ones. And they would go around picking out bugs out of the grass and whatever else they could find. And so the children thought that was great fun to chase them. Well, they never did catch them, but they'd make them kind of fly a little bit and flap their wings and make all kinds of noise and get all upset. Well, Grandma came out. Grandma Leona came out, and she said, "You kids quit chasing those chickens. If you keep chasing them, they'll quit laying eggs, and then you won't have any breakfast eggs." So the kids just started giggling and laughing, and they started to head back towards the back of the farm, and they ended up in the granary. And they remembered that Grandpa had a bunch of sheep. So you walk in a walkway, and then you have to go over a fence inside, a barrier inside the granary, because this was a lean-to. Now, the granary was a peak, but coming down off the side was a slope. So it looked like that. So this peak went pretty high, and then there was a slope, okay? So they had to go into this part of the barn. That's where all the lambs and the sheep and everything were, and then there were doors that went outside to where they had an outside pen. Well, this pen is where they went to the bathroom. Of course, they went to the bathroom anywhere they want. And so outside, it was a short wall. So the wall on the end of the granary. So it's here and it came down, and then there's a wall right here like this. And that wall right there was supposed to be 5 or 6 feet. But after you had lambs or pigs or sheep or whatever in there, there'd be manure and straw and manure and straw. So it would build up. It'd be hard. It wasn't gooey, but it would build up until it was closer, so that that roof coming down off wasn't maybe 3 feet off the ground before Grandpa would come out with the tractor and the front loader and dig it up and clean it all out. But in the meantime, it got higher, so you had just this drop off. Well, the granary roof was metal. It was silver metal, aluminum. So the children looked at it, and they didn't see a roof. What they saw was a magnificently tall, great big, yeah, you guessed it, slide. Now, the metal roof had slats sections about this wide. Then there was a little ledge in between each section. So section, ledge, section, ledge. So if you would squeeze that real tight, you could put your feet, barefoot, of course, you're always barefoot, put your feet on that and climb up it. Well, Tia and Zach, or not Zach, Tia and Desmond thought, that's a big slide. And they're going, oh, we do it all the time. So Sharon's the oldest one, and she heads up. She climbs up, went and got some buckets, climbed up on that roof, and then made their way up by squeezing, walking and squeezing and walking and squeezing. And then when you came to that slope, then it got real steep. Then you had to be really careful, because sometimes you'd lose your balance and go tumbling and sliding down. What you wanted to do is on that slope is slow down enough that you didn't go kabonk when you got to the end. Now, it was only a 3-foot drop off, so you probably weren't going to break much, but it wasn't any fun, and you could get hurt. So she started up, and then Debi, Grandma Debi, she heads up after him. And Desmond and Tia, they're not to be left out. Up they go. They're trying to follow, and they're trying to get a grip on it and put their feet against the side and push to get up. And finally, Desmond says, this is hot, because it's getting later in the morning, and the higher the sun gets, that metal roof starts getting warm, and it actually starts getting hot. So Sharon's at the top, and she sits down, and down she goes, swoop, and she slows down just enough so she can crawl off the end. Or she can turn around, go over to the edge, and start back up again. Of course, Grandma Debi gets down, and she didn't slow down, and off she went off the end, and kabonk, and rolled and laughed, and that was that. Well, meantime, Arlene and Darlene are watching, and they decide they're going to start up. So we're in the middle, they're over here on the side, and they're working, but it's hot. So Sharon Lee says, hey, I'm going to go get some gunny sacks. Now, this slide is great big, right? And it's made out of silver metal. So we've got our summer clothes on, and guess what happens when you slide down aluminum that's been painted, and yeah, you get dirty. And you'd think it'd be silver, but nope, it's black. And I don't know if it ever came out of our clothes, because you're sliding down it and it's grinding right into your clothes, and we're laughing and carrying on. So anyway, Sharon disappears, and she goes into the barn where we keep the cows and stuff, and she comes out with sacks. There's 2 different kinds of sacks. One's made out of burlap, and the other one's made out of cotton. So now we had to decide which of these 2 bags is going to be better to use as a slide, because that not only makes you go faster, well, we didn't know which one made us faster. We had to figure that out. But it protected you from that heat, because, man, that would get hot. Now, the problem was you needed your hands and your feet to try to get up so you didn't slide backwards or fall back down. Meanwhile, Marlene and Arlene are still making their way up, right? And they're a little bit timid about everything. It's a little bit scary. And over on the fence, like this, is Roger and little Lily. They're just saying, you guys just do this. We're just going to watch. And meantime, they're watching the geese and the peacocks. And there's some other animals out there. And the cows are going back to the woods. And so they've got lots that they can look at. And behind them, the chickens are all running around. There's all different kinds of chickens. And they're all running all over, guineas and everything. So Sharon makes it up there, Debi makes it up there, and to get up there, you've got to find a way to carry your sack. So sometimes you can put it on your back, sometimes you put it in your mouth, you know, Sometimes you put it in your fingers and you have to squeeze tighter. And sometimes it lets go and it slides down by itself, and you got to go down, or somebody's got to bring it back up to you. So we get up to the top, and I get up there. Grandma Debi gets up there with Desmond, and he makes it, and he is so excited. And Tia's coming right up beside him. I said, let's have a race. So Sharon Lee, she sits down, and as Sharon Lee always does, she'd say, ready, set, and then she would go. She would go before she said go. Yeah, so who's going to win, right? So we waited, and we just stayed there. And then Desmond says, ready, set, go, and we just slide, and we come down that peak, and then get down to that part. Now you got to squeeze really tight, and we found out the burlap sacks, they were the fastest that day. Oh boy, and Grandma Debi, off the end, she went. Now Tia and Desmond, they were able to slow themselves down. Meanwhile, Marlene and Darlene are still up at the top, and they have decided that they're scared and they don't want to come down. Now, they've done this before, but for today, I don't know if they got higher than usual or whatever, so we continued to play. So Sharon and Debbie and Tia and Desmond, up they go again, and they all get up there, and then they race back down again, and sometimes they went off the end, and boy, Tia, that was about as tall as she was, so she needed to squeeze real tight. So one of us went down to the end when she came down going kind of fast, and kind of slowed her down at the end. Meanwhile, on the fence, we've got Lindley and Roger just watching away like crazy, because they're not going to do this yet. And Marlene and Darlene are still over there. So this goes on for how long? I don't know. And finally, Darlene says, I just got to get down. I'm afraid I can't get down. So what do? They're stuck up on this slant about halfway up. Slant's here, and then the peak of the roof. And this building, it's at least 3 stories tall. At least. It's a big barn. It's a big barn. So finally, Sharon was busy with the other 2, and they were playing, and they started playing Follow the Leader. They'd see how long they could keep their hands off, or they'd see how they could stop with just their feet, or they'd see, if they held the gunny sack in between their legs, would they go faster? What if they laid down? So they were trying on their back, but you had to be careful, because if you got too fast going on that last part, you were going to go shooting right off the end. Then you had a landing coming. So anyways, Debbie went up to help the twins, and what she did was she went up and she sat down right in front of them. Now there's 2 of them, and they're both in the same aisle. So she has to go down and squeeze, because they've got their feet right on her back, and they're slowing them down. She's slowing them down so that they don't get down, and they're scared. They're scared, because and I'll tell you, Grandma Debi, it was everything she could do not to just let go and just go as fast as she could to see what happened, and slow down at the end. But she didn't, because she knew that it was really scary, and they were littler. They were only like 8 years old, so, they got the right to be a little bit afraid. But nobody told Tia and Desmond that they could be afraid, and they didn't know, and they were just having, down they'd go, back up they'd go. Hands were black, clothes were black, feet were black, everything's black. They're dirty from the pen, dirty from the roof, dirty from sweating and sticking. But pretty soon, it started getting really hot. Well, to save the day, they heard Grandma calling. Grandma Leona, you kids come in for lunch. Because she had come out, stuck her head outside the house, and said, lunch is ready. So the kids are going, oh, good, because this roof is getting really hot. We don't want to quit, but if we have to, it's not our fault. So down they came, and about that time, little Lindley and Roger get off the fence, and they head towards the house. Now the fence is here, and this is the back of the woodshed. So it formed a corner. And they got down and they started walking towards the back of the woodshed. Well, the others of us all jumped off, and we're coming down and climbing over the fence and giggling and laughing and grabbing our sacks, because we know if we don't put them away, we're going to get in trouble. And they also won't be there the next time we want them. So we've got those. And finally, Sharon took them and put them inside the granary so we'd know wherever they were, because we were planning on coming back out. But boy, you don't really want to get on that roof at 1 or 2 o'clock. It's hot. So we climbed over the fence. Sharon came out, and we started walking all behind the woodshed. It's a decent-sized barn. And the little one stopped. And lo and behold, we heard gobble, 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 gobble. And then you hear, whoo, whoo. look over, and there he is, Ruben. Ruben was a turkey. He was supposed to be Thanksgiving dinner turkey. He was huge. He was so big, and he would pump himself out, and he'd get his wings going, and his tail would all feather out. He'd strut around, and he had these talons on the back, and he would threaten you and intimidate you. And so we kept walking, and he charged us. Well, back against the woodshed we all went, all 8 of us, right? And Ruben's thinking he's pretty good, so he backs off, and he starts making a half circle. So we're in this wedge part right here, and he makes a half circle, and he's starting to make that circle small, or the half circle smaller, and he's closing in on us. Well, the little ones were just crying. They were hiding behind us. They were scared to death, and we would take off, and I would run towards the turkey thinking he'd back off, but he didn't. He would come at us, and then he would back off again. And if we went one way to get out, he would go over there. If we went the other way to get out, he would go over there. So we couldn't leave the little ones either. We had to stay there and protect him because he could have hurt them. He was a big, big turkey. So we're over there squealing and hollering. Grandma comes out again. You kids, I called you once. Get in here for lunch. What's the matter with you? Oh, we all started screaming, Grandma, help us. Grandma, help us. So not very long, a couple minutes later, Grandma comes stalking around. She's only 5'3", right? She comes stalking around past the windmill, around the building, and she goes, what is going on here? Ruben's got us cornered, and we can't get out, and he's going to hurt the little ones, and he's going to hurt us, and we can't get away. Oh, she was so mad. She just was upset that this turkey was bothering us children. And he was a bully. He really was. And he really thought he had the best of everything going. So he even came towards Grandma. Grandma said, Ruben, you back off. You know you're not supposed to be messing with these kids. Now you go on your way. Well, he didn't. He charged the kids again. Now, well, that was enough just to get Grandma upset. So she went straight towards that turkey. He was all puffed up, strutting around. And he kind of lunged at her. Oh, she was quicker than him. She grabbed him by the neck, and she's talking to him. Now, Ruben, I told you to leave those kids alone. Now, you go on about your business, and you don't be messing with them. And she went to throw him. Well, he was too heavy. He's too big. And she's just a little mite of a thing. So she drug him. She got him by the neck. His little feet are going like this behind him. Pretty soon, he just kind of settled in. She drug him over about 20, 30 feet. And then kind of tried to throw him, couldn't throw him because he was too heavy again. And want to guess what happened? Just like the geese, Ruben went to the ground and he didn't get up. She'd either broken his neck or strangled him. Either way, he was dead and he wasn't going to bully us anymore. And she kept right on yelling at him. She goes, serves you right. You shouldn't be messing with those kids. You got other business to tend to. And so she said, you children get out there. There were wash tubs. And they were sitting out in the sunshine, out in the barnyard in front. They'd been sitting out there for the sun to warm them because they were coming out of the well of the water and it was cold. She said, you guys go out there closing on. You get yourselves cleaned up. You are a mess. Then you run around the front yard until you get kind of dry. And then we'll bring lunch out to you. So she... Pretty soon, I see Grandpa coming over, and he picks up Ruben, he takes him back, and they're going to get a big, big tub of hot water, and they're going to clean him up. And want to guess what we had for supper that night? Yep. We had turkey. And I'll tell you, we learned as kids, you don't mess with Grandma. She's a little thing, and she's sweet, and she's nice, but you don't want to mess with her because the turkeys didn't win, and the geese didn't win. And we won every time because she took care of us. So we were getting out of the tubs and dripping wet. We soaped all up and cleaned up, kept our clothes on, got out and played chase in the yard until the drips were off. And by then she'd brought plates out, set them down on the sidewalk, right on the sidewalk by the house. And our aluminum cups with Kool-Aid. I liked red. That was my favorite. And sandwiches and chips and the things that you got at Grandma's that you never got at home. Bologna sandwiches. It was awesome. We put our potato chips right in our bologna sandwiches and drank as much red Kool-Aid. Can you imagine? As much red Kool-Aid as we could drink. And it was a wonderful time. So Ruben didn't mess with us anymore. And Grandpa and Grandma, they kind of said, slow down on that roof thing. We don't want anybody hurt. Of course, next day we were back up on it again. And that was all right because we were on the farm and that's what you did. Well, I hope you had a good time. And they looked up and there's Pegasus right there in the yard. So up they scampered onto his back, shot back to the west, got back home in their bed. And Tia said, what do you have, Desmond? What do you have? And he reached in his pocket and he pulled out a treasure. And you know what it was? It was a turkey. It was a turkey. It was Ruben. Tia reached in her sack and her pocket pulled out a sack. It was a gunny sack. It was burlap and it was fast. And little Lindley pulled hers out and it was a fence because she'd been sitting on the fence the whole time. They didn't want to give her a turkey because they didn't want to scare her. And Tia said, we really did go, didn't we, Desmond? And he said, yes, we did. They put them back in their pocket, and the turkey quit gobbling. That was the end of that. So you guys have a wonderful evening. Until next time, bye-bye.